Imagine an elite SS tank division, panicking, not because of artillery shells, but because their multi-ton machines start acting like cows on ice in the middle of a hot July. This is the story of how one insane idea from a Soviet chemist stopped a steel armada without firing a single shot. Generals threatened him with a firing squad for this filth, while SS soldiers screamed over the radio about an unknown seismic weapon. But the most terrifying part began later, when the Germans tried to outsmart science, and in return got earth that burned right under their tracks. How did a bucket of chemical waste prove stronger than Krupp armor? And why did victory in this battle smell not of gunpowder, but of fried lard and poisonous phosphorus? Read on to find out how breaking the laws of physics saved an entire front. July 1943, the Kursk salient. The air here isn't just hot. It consists of a suspension of less dust, burnt diesel, and overheated metal. Visibility on the horizon drops to zero, not because of fog, but because of a dense curtain of dust raised by the tracks of hundreds of machines. This is not a battlefield. This is a giant proving ground, where the German steel industry methodically grinds down the Soviet defense. 75 millimeters of frontal armor at a rational angle of inclination. The new German beast, the Panzer tank, is on the hunt. Observers on the front lines report dry, terrible facts. Shells from 45 millimeter cannons do not penetrate the armor. They shatter, leaving only gray pockmarks on the cemented steel. The kinetic energy of the impact is dampened by the geometry of the hull. Artillerymen fire from 400 meters, 200 meters, point blank. The result is the same: ricochet. Tracers go into the sky as useless fireworks. The German wedge, built on the classic Panzerkeil scheme, drives into the soft flesh of infantry divisions. Speed of advance, 12 kilometers per hour. This is not an attack. This is an execution. Inside the front headquarters dugout, there is a silence broken only by the buzzer of a field telephone and the heavy breathing of operators. The smell here is specific, a mixture of damp earth, cheap tobacco, and acrid human fear. The general stands over a map. The red pencil in his hand is broken. On paper, the situation looks like a death sentence. The defense line has been breached along a 5-kilometer section. There are no reserves. Tank brigades thrown into a counterattack burn in the steppe without managing to get within effective firing range. German Zeiss optics allow them to pick off our machines from 1.5 kilometers away. This is no longer tactics. This is the mathematics of destruction, where the variables do not add up in the Red Army's favor. The door to the dugout flies open against regulations. A man in the uniform of the engineering corps doesn't walk in. He stumbles in. His tunic is soaked in stains that no laundry can remove. He smells not of gunpowder or sweat, but of sharp acidic chemicals, phenol and sulfur. Igor Sobolev, a man whose face is gray from insomnia and whose eyes burn with the feverish gleam of a fanatic. He does not salute. He throws a folder of calculations onto the table in front of the general. The papers are stained with something oily. "Comrade General, artillery will not stop this breakthrough." Sobolev's voice creaks like an ungreased hinge. "We are hitting them in the forehead, where the armor is thickest. We are playing by their rules. We need to change the physics of the process." The general slowly raises his gaze. In his eyes is the leaden fatigue of 3 days without sleep. Around him, staff officers freeze. On any other day, an engineer would be court-martialed on the spot for such a tone. But today, subordination died along with the 1st Battalion of tank destroyers. "I have 300 Panthers marching on a Boyan, engineer," the general says hollowly. "My crews are burning. And you brought me formulas?" "I brought you friction. Sobolev taps the map with a finger blackened by reagents. Or rather, the lack thereof. A tank is not just a cannon and armor. It is 45 tons of mass transferred to the ground through 2 narrow ribbons of tracks. Traction with the surface is their Achilles heel. Remove the coefficient of static friction, and this steel monster turns into a helpless pile of metal. Staff officers exchange glances. Someone twirls a finger at their temple. The proposal sounds like the ravings of a madman. Stop a tank armada not with a tungsten core, but with sludge? Sobolev ignores the skepticism. He lays a diagram on the table. We synthesized a compound, codename S2. It's not oil, it's a non-Newtonian fluid, based on modified fatty acids and waste from oil cracking. Under the pressure created by a tank track, almost a kilogram per square centimeter, the mixture changes its phase state. It creates a film a few microns thick between the track metal and the ground. The coefficient of traction drops to the values of wet ice. You propose watering the steppe with oil while bombers are flattening us? The general squints, metal cutting into his voice. Do you understand that I need a solution now, not after the war at the Academy of Sciences? I need one night and a company of sappers. Sobolev speaks quickly, chopping his words. We will flood a section of the highway and the adjacent slopes in the tank-threatened direction. When the lead vehicles enter the zone, they will lose control. The 700-horsepower Maybach engine will become their enemy. Torque will tear the transmission apart if the driver tries to maneuver. They will block themselves in.
It will be a scrap heap, Comrade General. A shooting gallery for our artillery.
A heavy pause hangs in the dugout. Somewhere above, kilometers away, howitzers boom hollowly. Dirt trickles down from the log ceiling. The general looks at the engineer. He sees not a hero, not a savior. He sees a man proposing madness out of desperation. But conventional methods are no longer working. Shells are running out. Men are running out. Only chemistry and risk remain. The general takes a cigarette from the table, crushes the mouthpiece, but does not light it. If your sludge doesn't work, Sobolev, he says quietly, and this whisper is scarier than a scream. If the tanks pass this line, I will personally shoot you in front of the survivors. Not for defeat, but because you wasted time needed to prepare a normal defense. You are betting your head against the SS Totenkopf Panzer Division. Sobolev does not flinch. His face remains a mask molded from plaster and fatigue. He knows the chemistry of the process. He knows the flashpoint and the viscosity of the mixture. In his world of formulas, there is no room for doubt, only the probability of error. A head for a division is a profitable exchange rate, Comrade General, the chemist replies. I need tankers, pumps, and men who aren't afraid of burning alive while pouring the reagent. Give him everything he asks for. The general waves to his adjutant, turning back to the map. The conversation is over. And assign guards to him, so he doesn't run away before the experiment begins. Sobolev gathers his blueprints. There is no triumph in his movements, only cold calculation. He got the resources. Now the battlefield turns into a giant laboratory dish. Time has compressed. 6 hours remain until dawn. 6 hours to turn a patch of Kursk black earth into a deadly trap that violates the laws of physics for the enemy. He walks out of the dugout into the stifling night. Somewhere out there, beyond the horizon, hundreds of steel machines are warming up their engines, their crews confident in their invulnerability. They believe in Krupp steel. Sobolev believes in molecular bonds. In the morning, these two faiths will collide. A ZIS-5 truck, bouncing over potholes, flies into the courtyard of a half-ruined machine tractor station. 4 kilometers from the front line. Here, individual shots are no longer heard, only a continuous, low-frequency hum that vibrates the diaphragm. The ground underfoot trembles finely and nastily, like a living creature in chills. This is German aviation working, plowing up the rear. But here, in the brick skeleton of the repair shop, the danger is different. Here, the air can be cut with a knife. It is thick, yellowish, and smells of a nauseating mixture of burnt fat and oil. This is Igor Sobolev's laboratory. No sterile tables, no fume hoods or white coats. Instead of chrome autoclaves, rusty 50-gallon drums are set on bricks over open fires. Instead of lab assistants, a squad of sappers and 2 miraculously surviving factory technologists with faces black from soot. This is not chemistry in the academic sense. This is the industrial alchemy of war, where the purity of reagents is replaced by their availability and process safety is ignored for the sake of speed. "Hold the temperature!" Sobolev shouts, drowning out the noise of distant explosions. He stands by the furthest barrel, rolling up the sleeves of his tunic to the elbow. There are red spots of thermal burns on his arms. "If we overheat above 140 degrees, the glycerin will start to decompose. We'll get a smoke grenade instead of lubricant, which will give us all away to German spotters." In the barrels, a hellish brew boils. The base of the mixture is veterinary fat, confiscated from food warehouses, technical oils drained from knocked-out tractors, and unrefined glycerin. Individually, this is garbage. Together, with the right heat treatment and the addition of thickeners, they turn into a substance with unique frictional properties. Soldiers, coughing and wiping tearing eyes with their sleeves, stir the thick mass with wooden paddles. Metal cannot be used. A spark from striking the edge of the barrel could ignite the vapors. The heat in the room is like a blast furnace. There is no ventilation. The roof is riddled with shrapnel, but the smoke doesn't leave. It accumulates under the ceiling in a suffocating cloud. "Third container, add the catalyst," commands the technologist, checking his pocket watch. The second hand moves too fast. "Careful, damn it, don't splash!" A soldier tips a bucket of dark brown liquid into the boiling fat. The mixture instantly boils up, rising in a cap of poisonous foam. A hiss sounds, like the sigh of a giant snake. Acrid steam containing acrolein hits the nostrils. Breathing becomes impossible. Men choke, gasping for the scorching air. But no one steps away from the cauldrons. Vomiting urges are suppressed by willpower. Right now, their organism is just a mechanism for completing the task. Sobolev runs to the barrel, grabs the paddle from the soldier, and begins furiously mixing the thickening mass himself. He feels the resistance of the material. Viscosity is increasing. The esterification reaction is proceeding correctly, despite the primitive conditions. Molecular chains are lining up into the needed structure. "Water! Bring water here! Cool the jacket!" he yells. Sappers haul buckets of water from the fire pond, pouring it over the red-hot sides of the barrels from the outside. The metal screeches, steam envelops the men head to toe. This is balancing on a razor's edge. Hesitate a moment, and the mixture will flash. The flash point of the vapors of this cocktail is only 200 degrees. One mistake, and this shed will turn into a volumetric explosion visible for tens of kilometers. Somewhere very close, about 300 meters away, a heavy German shell lands. The shock wave hits the walls of the shop. Plaster and dust rain down from the ceiling, falling right into the open containers. "Cover the lids!" Sobolev's voice breaks into a wheeze. "Don't let the dirt spoil the emulsion!" Soldiers throw themselves onto the hot metal, covering the barrels with sheets of iron, tarpaulin, their own bodies. The ringing of shrapnel on the brickwork outside is drowned out by cursing and commands inside. The fear of death here has atrophied. It has been displaced by another fear, the fear of failure. If they don't brew these 20 tons of mixture by 4 in the morning, the tanks will pass. This thought is scarier than shrapnel.
The chemist scoops up a bit of the cooling substance with a long probe.
He rubs the black, oily slime between his fingers. It stretches without breaking, forming a slippery film that is impossible to wipe off. Friction between the fingers disappears completely. Skin slides on skin, meeting no resistance. Viscosity is normal, he states, and in his voice there is the grim satisfaction of a scientist whose experiment succeeded against logic. Adhesion to metal is high. This will work. Comrade military engineer. A sergeant approaches him, his face resembling a miner's mask. We're short on containers. What are we going to pour it into? Into everything, Sobolev cuts him off. Jerry cans, milk churns, shell casings from large caliber guns, fire buckets, anything that holds liquid. Load up the trucks. We have 2 hours left until dawn. The work shifts to a phase of feverish loading. Hot containers burn hands even through mittens. Men, staggering from fatigue and toxic poisoning, drag heavy churns to the trucks. No one says unnecessary words. Everyone understands. What they just made in these dirty barrels is equal in destructive power to a minefield. Sobolev watches the loading. His eyes are red from acrid smoke, his hands trembling with the fine tremors of overexertion. He knows that this compound, S2, is unstable in storage. It will separate in 2 days. But he doesn't need 2 days. He needs 1 morning. A morning when German pedantry will collide with Russian ingenuity mixed with chemistry and desperation. The trucks, their springs sagging under the weight of the terrible cargo, start their engines. The column is ready to move out into the gray zone, to where their land ends and no man's death begins. Sobolev jumps onto the running board of the lead vehicle. The laboratory in hell has met its quota. Now the practical exam begins. An exam that no one will be around to retake.
3 o'clock in the morning. The time when the human body is in a deep biological pit. Reaction is slowed. Attention is scattered. But in the gray zone, the strip of alienation between Soviet trenches and German positions, sleeping is forbidden. Here, any sound louder than a heartbeat is a reason for a machine gun burst. The trucks with extinguished headlights stop half a kilometer from the designated area, further only on foot. Sobolev looks at his men. These are not saboteurs from the NKVD Special Forces. These are ordinary sappers and infantrymen, laden with jerry cans, churns, and buckets like pack mules. On each man is 20 to 30 kilograms of viscous death. The task is simple to the point of primitivism and complex to the point of impossibility. Unnoticed, cover 200 meters of asphalt highway and the adjacent slope with a layer of reagent. "Don't clank," whispers the group commander, a lieutenant with a bandaged head. "Don't hit iron against iron." If they launch a chandelier, freeze.
I see anyone running, I'll shoot them myself. The group moves out. They crawl along the ditches, dragging heavy containers behind them. The smell of wormwood and dust is overpowered by the sharp stench of rancid fat oozing from loosely closed lids. Sobolev crawls with them. He doesn't need to carry a load. His load is the responsibility for whether the chemistry will work on the asphalt that has cooled overnight. He feels the road. The surface is rough, dry, ideal for track grip. A tank will pass here as if on rails, unless they intervene. The German side is not sleeping. A flare, a chandelier, shoots into the sky with a hiss. Deathly pale magnesium light floods the space, carving every bush, every stone out of the darkness. Shadows become long and black, like cracks in the universe. The sappers press themselves into the ground, trying to merge with the landscape.
Seconds drag on like hours. While the flare hangs on its parachute, time stops. The heart beats against the ribs so hard it seems the knocking can be heard in the German dugouts. "Clear," exhales the lieutenant when the light goes out, and eyes go blind for a moment from the returning darkness. "Let's go! Faster!" They scramble onto the roadbed. The asphalt is still warm after the hot day. This is good. The viscosity of the S2 mixture depends on temperature. In the cold, it thickens, losing fluidity. The heat of the road will help it spread in an even layer. The work begins. Dull sounds of corks being opened, heavy gurgling. Liquid pours onto the road in black puddles that immediately spread, joining into one continuous mirror. Sappers work in fans, splashing the composition from the center to the shoulders. This is hard physical labor. Arms go numb, backs ache, but they cannot stop. "Pour it thicker on the turn," hisses Sobolev, grabbing the nearest soldier by the shoulder.
"There will be centrifugal force here. They have to drift here." Suddenly, a whistle cuts the air. Mortar barrage. The Germans don't see them. They are simply firing harassing fire at sectors, combing the area on schedule. The first mine falls 50 meters away. Shrapnel clicks on the asphalt, striking sparks. The second lands closer. The blast wave knocks over a churn of reagent. The precious sludge goes into the sand. "Get down!" The scream drowns in the roar of the explosion. One of the sappers doesn't make it. He settles softly, without a sound, dropping his jerrycan. The dark puddle beneath him is a mixture of blood and chemicals, a mixture that won't separate. Sobolev sees the others freeze in a stupor for a second. The instinct of self-preservation screams, "Run!" But the order and the fear of what will happen in the morning are stronger. "Don't stand there!" The chemist's voice is dry and angry. "Take his can. Finish pouring the square. We have 5 minutes until the next volley." The men continue to work under fire. This isn't heroism in the bookish sense. It is the mechanical performance of a function. Fear is driven into the subconscious. Movements are honed to automatism. Pour, smear, toss the empty container, take a new one. The slope of the hill leading into the ravine is watered particularly thoroughly. This is the key element of the trap, a geometric snare. If a tank slips off the road, it must go down, not get stuck on the shoulder. The smell becomes unbearable. Vapors of the heated mixture mix with gunpowder fumes. A metallic taste is in the mouth. Eyes sting. Sobolev checks the quality of the coating. He steps with his boot onto the treated section. The sole slides sideways as if he stepped on a piece of wet soap. Maintaining balance is impossible. He falls to one knee, staining his uniform in sticky black mud. "It works," he whispers. The coefficient of friction is lower than ice. The sky in the east begins to turn gray. The treacherous dawn approaches inexorably. The outlines of trees become sharper. Now they are targets. "Let's move," commands the lieutenant. "Take the empties, leave no traces." The group rolls into the ditch. The body of the dead soldier is dragged on a raincoat tent. Behind, on the highway, remains 200 meters of shiny, greasy surface, which in the pre-dawn twilight looks like ordinary wet asphalt after rain. Visually, it is impossible to notice the trick. Only chemistry knows the truth. They crawl back to their positions as the first rays of the sun touch the horizon. Sobolev looks back. The road is empty and quiet. It waits. It is no longer a transport artery. It is a slow-action fuse. In a few hours, 45 tons of German overconfidence will pass here, and the physics they respect so much will betray them. In the trenches, they are met with silence.
No one asks, how did it go? Everyone looks at the black, oily stains on the clothes of the returnees. The sappers collapse to the bottom of the trench, breathing heavily. Hands shake. Now that the adrenaline is receding, the body takes its toll. Sobolev wipes his face with a rag, but the smell of fat has eaten into his pores. He looks at his watch. The hands show 5 in the morning. Somewhere in the distance, from the direction of the German rear, a low, rumbling hum grows. The sound of hundreds of powerful engines warming up before the attack. The earth begins to vibrate. The show begins. Sobolev takes out his binoculars and settles in next to the artillery observer's trench periscope. Now he can change nothing. The formula is written, the reagents mixed, the catalyst introduced. All that remains is to wait for the reaction. 5:30 in the morning. The sun rises over the Kursk steppe as a red, inflamed disk, shining through the haze of exhaust fumes. The acoustic shock precedes visual contact. The earth begins to hum. It is not a tremor. It is a low-frequency vibration transmitted through boot soles directly into the spine. The tank wedge is coming. At the tip of the attack are heavy machines, the pride of the Third Reich. New Panthers and modernized Panzer IVs with long-barreled guns. They march in parade formation, confident in their invulnerability. The distance between vehicles is a regulation 50 meters. Hatches are battened down. Crews see the world through the narrow slits of vision blocks. Through binoculars, it is clearly visible how the lead vehicle, its sides adorned with SS Division tactical markings, drives onto the asphalt highway. The driver guns the engine. The 700-horsepower Maybach howls, spewing a puff of blue smoke. Tracks bite into the surface. The multi-ton behemoth gains speed, preparing for a dash at our positions. The Germans see a smooth road ahead, glistening in the morning rays. They think it's due. The tank crosses the invisible line where the S2 mixture treatment begins. At this second, physics betrays them. The coefficient of traction of the tracks with the surface instantly drops from 0.7 to values close to 0. The friction force, which allowed colossal torque to be transmitted to the ground, disappears. The tracks continue to spin at a furious speed, but the tank does not accelerate. It loses its vector of motion. The 45-ton Panther turns into a cow on ice. Ignoring the efforts of the powerful engine and the skill of the driver, the armored carcass begins to slide by inertia. The slightest unevenness in the relief, a slight slope of the roadbed, and the machine drifts to the side. The driver tries to counter the skid, pulls the steering clutch lever, locking one of the tracks. On dry asphalt, this would cause a sharp turn. Here, on chemical ice, it causes an uncontrolled spin. The tank spins 180 degrees. Its stern, the most vulnerable place, is exposed to the impact of the next machine. The rear tank does not have time to brake. The distance of 50 meters is eaten up in seconds. It crashes into the side of the spun-out leader. The screech of tearing metal drowns out the roar of engines. The long barrel of the second tank's gun rips open the engine compartment of the first, crumpling the radiator louvers like paper. Sparks from the impact of steel on steel shower down in a cascade. But there is no fire yet. The S2 mixture also works as a lubricant, dampening the temperature at the point of contact. This is not a battle. This is a bowling alley where the pins are made of Krupp armor. "What is happening?" A voice cracking into a scream is heard on the intercept radio, the German company commander. "Fourth, why are you stopping? Back! Back! I am not controlling the machine!" The mechanic screams back. "Tracks are spinning! There is ice here!" Ice in July. The third machine in the column tries to drive around the jam on the shoulder,
But Sobolev accounted for this, too. The mixture is poured wide, covering the slopes of the embankment. As soon as the Panther's track touches the inclined surface covered with greasy reagent, gravity asserts its rights. The tank simply slides sideways into the ditch. It paddles the earth with its tracks, trying to hook on, but the layer of modified fats works like a perfect slide bearing. The machine slowly, as if in slow motion, rolls onto its side, exposing its belly. A terrible crunch is heard, the suspension torsion bars snapping under the unnatural angle of load. The turret, losing support, jams. The crew inside turns into mincemeat mixed with gun breeches and ammunition. Panic begins in the German formation. Rear vehicles see the vanguard turn into a pile of interlocked metal, but the inertia of the column pushes them forward. They slam on the brakes. This is a mistake. Locked tracks on a slippery surface turn tanks into uncontrollable sleds. They slide sideways. Heavy Tigers, coming in the second echelon, ram light support personnel carriers, flattening them into pancakes along with the infantry. In the Soviet trenches, there is dead silence. People do not believe their eyes. Artillerymen freeze at their sights, forgetting to pull the lanyard. The gunner of a 45mm gun lowers his binoculars and wipes his eyes with a dirty fist. "Comrade Lieutenant, are they drunk?" The loader's voice trembles. "Look, he's hitting himself." The battery commander looks into the trench periscope. He sees how the formidable German wedge has crumbled. The formation is broken. The battle order is violated. Instead of a single armored fist, a pile of helpless steel beetles flounders on the highway. Tanks spin their wheels in place, engines roaring at maximum RPM, but they cannot move a meter. Tracks polish the asphalt, spraying black sludge. "Not drunk," the commander laughs hoarsely, and this laugh is more like a cough. "Sobolev treated them. Fire, rapid fire, at the stationary targets." Now it's a shooting gallery. An immobile tank, standing broadside or stern to, is an ideal target. Soviet guns open fire. Now the shells don't need to penetrate frontal armor. They hit the sides, the fuel tanks, the road wheels. The first explosion rips open the side of the lead Panther. A pillar of flame shoots into the sky. Crews try to jump out of burning machines, but their feet slip on the armor covered with the same cursed mixture. They fall right onto the asphalt, into puddles of reagent, and cannot get up. Men flounder in black mud, trying to crawl while metal bursts around them. The airwaves are filled with screams in German. The word sabotage sounds more often than the word Russians. They do not understand the nature of the weapon. They look for mines, look for magnetic traps, but find only slippery mud that smells of rancid lard. Germany's great engineering thought, which created sophisticated staggered suspension and precision optics, proved powerless before a bucket of chemical waste. Sobolev watches this from the forward shelter. He does not laugh. He times it on a stopwatch. 5 minutes. That's how long it took to turn an elite tank battalion into a pile of scrap metal. "Viscosity is dropping," he comments dryly, watching as one of the tanks manages to crawl onto the shoulder, wagging its stern. "The sun is heating the asphalt. In an hour, the effect will disappear. The artillery needs to hurry." 5 machines are already burning on the road. Black smoke from burning rubber tires and diesel fuel mixes with S2 vapors, creating a poisonous smog. Tanks that avoided collisions try to turn around and go back, but the pivot maneuver, which German tankers are so proud of, is impossible here. One track goes forward, the other back, and the tank simply spins like a top, remaining in place, an ideal target for armor-piercing slugs. This is a complete tactical dead end. The logic of war is broken against chemistry. Success on the highway changes the status of the experiment. Now it is not a loner's adventure, but a doctrine. At the front headquarters, they no longer look at Igor Sobolev as a madman. They look at him as a supplier of ammunition, even though his ammunition doesn't explode. Generals who yesterday threatened execution now demand scaling. They don't care about chemical formulas. They need results. They need burning panthers. Sobolev stands over a topographical map of the area. Now his weapon is not only the viscosity of the liquid, but also the geometry of the terrain. He sees the battlefield not as a set of heights and depressions, but as a system of vectors and inclined planes. Every ravine, every bridge, every bend in the road is a potential trap, if the physics of sliding are calculated correctly. The highway isn't enough, engineer. The tank brigade commander pokes a finger at the map, nearly tearing the paper. The Germans have regrouped. They will bypass the jam on dirt roads, through the gullies. There is dry clay there. They will pass. I need them to stop there too. Give me more of your goop. Flood everything to hell. We can't flood everything. Sobolev's voice is dry, devoid of emotion. He takes a pencil and draws lines on the map. We have a limited resource of reagents. We can't turn the steppe into a swamp. We must strike precisely. Let's use the terrain. Gravity will do 80% of the work for us. He circles narrow places, bridges over streams, steep ascents, slopes. Look here. The road gradient in the village of Yakovlevo area is 12 degrees. For tracked vehicles on dry ground, this is not a problem. But if we lower the coefficient of friction to hundredths, the tangential component of gravity will exceed the traction force. The tank won't be able to climb. It won't even be able to stand. It will slide down like a stone from a mountain. War logistics are reorganized on the fly. Instead of shell crates, tankers and barrels are driven to the front line. Chemical plants in the rear receive an urgent order: produce cubic meters of cracking waste. No one asks why. If it's needed, it's needed. Sappers turn into meliorators of death. They work not only at night, but also in the twilight, under the cover of smoke screens. Another German column approaches a narrow bridge over a nameless ravine. Reconnaissance reported that the bridge is intact. This seems like luck. The German commander gives the order, forward. The lead tank drives onto the wooden decking. The bridge has a slight, barely noticeable transverse slope for rainwater runoff. In normal times, this is an engineering norm. Today, it is a sentence. As soon as the tracks touch the planks soaked in the S2 compound, the machine drifts sideways. It happens smoothly, terrifying in its irreversibility. The driver feels the stern going toward the railing. He tries to straighten the machine, but every movement of the levers only worsens the slide. The 50-ton tank tears through the flimsy railing and, flipping over the turret, crashes into the ravine. The crash of the falling multi-ton machine drowns out the roar of the column. The tank lands on its roof at the bottom of the ravine. The crew inside doesn't even have time to realize what killed them. Not a shell, not a mine. Physics killed them. The following machine brakes, but the braking distance on the treated descent to the bridge increases tenfold. The tank slides onto the bridge and crashes into a support hanging over the abyss. The passage is blocked tight. 2 tanks taken out of action without a single artillery shot. The column stops. It works, whispers the spotter on the height, looking through binoculars at the traffic jam. They plugged themselves up. Sobolev uses not only bridges. He turns steep hill slopes into insurmountable walls. Tigers, trying to overcome an ascent, begin to spin their wheels. Tracks rotate, throwing up fountains of black mud. But the machine creeps not up, but down, backward. Heavy tanks slide down, ramming and crushing armored personnel carriers and supply trucks following behind. Chaos reigns on the German tanker's radio. They report unknown seismic weapons or magnetic anomalies. Their minds, honed for a war of motors and armor, refuse to accept the fact that they are being defeated by the force of friction, or rather, its complete absence. Ravines fill with equipment. This is a graveyard of machines created by intellect, not TNT. Perfect economy of ammunition. Soviet batteries are silent, saving shells for those who can still move. The landscape, which for centuries was just geography, has become an active participant in the defense. Every degree of slope now works for the Red Army. Sobolev continues to draw in headquarters. His face is gray, black circles under his eyes, but his hand is steady. Here, he pokes at another bend in the road on the map. Here is a turn with a radius of 40 meters. At a speed of 30 kilometers per hour, centrifugal force will throw a tank off the road if traction is below normal. We pour here, outside radius. You are a devil, Sobolev, says the colonel, looking at the growing number of destroyed equipment marks. You fight with a calculator. I fight with the laws of nature, Comrade Colonel, the chemist replies, not lifting his head from calculations. Armor protects against the kinetic energy of a shell. Armor against gravity does not exist. The Germans try to change tactics. They send infantry forward to check the road. But an infantryman weighs 170 pounds, and a tank 50 tons. What holds a human turns into a skating rink for a machine. The pressure on the ground is different. The phase transition of the mixture occurs only under immense weight. This is a trap of selective action. It lets the soldier pass to kill the tank. By noon, the enemy loss statistics in this sector become catastrophic. Dozens of machines lie in ditches, ravines, and creek beds. They are intact, not burnt, but absolutely useless. To pull them out, tractors are needed, but tractors can't get close either. They slide. Paulus's army froze near Stalingrad. Manstein's army near Kursk slipped. Igor Sobolev steps out of the stuffy dugout into the air. He looks at the horizon, where pillars of smoke rise. These are the ones burning who managed to break through and get under cannon fire. But dozens of machines that should have been there are lying in the mud like overturned turtles. The scientist wipes his hands with a rag. Embedded blackness of reagents is on his fingers. War is dirty work. And today he did it with the cynical efficiency of an engineer who simply eliminated the variable motion from the attack equation. War is constant adaptation. The enemy, faced with an unknown threat, does not stay in a stupor for long. The German military machine runs on gasoline and discipline. By noon, German sappers find a solution. It is primitive, but effective. Sand. Ordinary quarry sand, gravel, broken brick, anything that can return traction to tracks. Wehrmacht trucks dump tons of abrasive right onto the slippery sections. Infantry scatter earth over the S2 reagent film with shovels. The coefficient of friction begins to creep up. Tanks, engines roaring, slowly, in jerks, begin to overcome the traps. They crawl along the sanded paths like insects on sticky tape covered in dust. The blockade is broken. Physics begins to work for the enemy again. Igor Sobolev watches this through a trench periscope. His face expresses no disappointment. He expected this. A new variable appeared in the battle equation, and he already has an answer prepared. If friction cannot be removed completely, it must be forced to kill differently. He turns to his chemists. "Open the reserve B," he commands in a voice devoid of pity. "Add carbon disulfide and white phosphorus to the mixture. Proportion 1:10. Heavy silence hangs in the laboratory. People know what white phosphorus is. This substance does not forgive mistakes. It ignites upon contact with air. It is stored under a layer of water. Working with it in field conditions is suicide. But there is no choice. The sand the Germans are pouring creates ideal conditions for a new reaction.
Now the process of preparing the mixture resembles working with an unexploded bomb. Sobolev personally controls the dissolution of phosphorus in carbon disulfide. The resulting liquid looks harmless, transparent, oily. But this is a deception. Carbon disulfide is a volatile solvent. As soon as it evaporates, the phosphorus will be left one-on-one with oxygen. And hell will begin. Now we don't need to wait for them to slide, Sobolev explains to the officers, looking at the smoking test tube. Now we need friction. The very friction they are trying to bring back with sand. The tracks will mix the compound with the soil, heat it up, the solvent will evaporate instantly, and the ground beneath them will catch fire. A new batch of modernized sludge is sent to the front line. Sappers work in rubberized suits, pouring sweat. The slightest drop on clothes that dries will turn a man into a living torch. They flood the same sections that the Germans so diligently covered with sand. The liquid soaks into the sand, saturates the gravel, waiting for its hour. This is no longer just lubricant. It is a chemical pressure mine. An hour later, the German column resumes movement. The lead Tiger confidently drives onto the treated section. The driver feels that the tracks are gripping the ground. The sand works. The tank picks up speed. Tracks grind the soil mixed with the phosphorus solution. The reaction begins suddenly. First, thick, milky white smoke appears from under the tracks. This is phosphorus oxide. Then, as if an invisible switch were flipped, the earth under the tank flares up. This is not ordinary flame. It is a bright, blinding chemical fire with a temperature of 1200 degrees. Phosphorus burns furiously, with a hiss, biting into everything it touches. Fire instantly engulfs the undercarriage. Rubber tires on the Tiger's road wheels flare up like gunpowder. Rubber melts, dripping and burning drops. The fire licks the steel tracks, heating them red hot. But the scariest part is the sticky burning mass that the tracks throw onto the fenders, onto the stern, onto the engine compartment grills. The tank turns into a fiery chariot. The engine cooling system begins to suck searing air and smoke inside. "Fire! The ground is burning!" screams the German radio operator. This intercept is heard in the Soviet headquarters. The voice is distorted by static and animal terror. "Oil temperature critical! We are burning on the outside! Engine stalling!" The mechanic tries to beat down the flames with speed, but this only intensifies the burning. Airflow fans the phosphorus. The tank stops. The crew opens the hatches, trying to abandon the machine. But the white smoke is toxic. One breath causes lung burns and throat spasms. Tankers fall out of the turret, coughing blood, and drop right into the burning earth beneath their feet. Their uniforms, soaked in oil fumes, ignite. Sobolev looks at the result. The sight is grim. The equipment is not just destroyed, it is desecrated by chemistry. Fire spreads to the transmission. Fuel tanks explode. Shells in the ammo rack begin to detonate from overheating. The Tiger's turret jumps, tearing off the ring, and crashes onto its side with a roar. The Germans panic and stop the column. They see their comrades burning alive without a single shot from the Russians. The psychological effect exceeds all expectations. Tankers are afraid to drive forward. It seems to them that the entire Russian land is soaked in fire. "What was that?" asks the artillery lieutenant, lowering his binoculars. His hands are trembling. He has seen many deaths, but never like this. "Exothermic reaction of phosphorus oxidation," Sobolev answers dryly, making a note in a notebook.
plus the catalytic effect of friction. No magic, just chemistry. It's cruel, exhales the lieutenant. War is not a knightly tournament, the scientist cuts him off. It is the destruction of enemy manpower and equipment by available methods. They brought their tanks here. We gave them the melting point of steel. A drama plays out on the road. German repairmen try to extinguish burning machines with fire extinguishers and water, but water only splashes the burning phosphorus. The fire cannot be beaten out. It can only be cut off from oxygen by covering it with earth. But the earth is also soaked in death. The second and third machines in the column try to back up, but hit sections where the mixture has not yet reacted. From the friction of tracks during the turn, new hotbeds flare up. The road turns into a river of fire. The stench of burning flesh, rubber, and chemicals covers the positions in a suffocating cloud. Sobolev feels no triumph. He feels only fatigue and cold tension of the mind. He knows this is a temporary measure. The phosphorus will burn out. The chemistry will evaporate. But time has been won. Precious hours during which artillery will manage to change positions and infantry to dig in. Comrade Military Engineer, a messenger from headquarters runs up to him. The commander demands the effect be repeated on the left flank. Motorized infantry breakthrough there. I have 3 barrels of base and 10 kilograms of phosphorus left. Sobolev closes the notebook. That's enough for 100 meters of firewall. Lead the way. He walks into the smoke, leaving behind the smoldering skeletons of German machines. Now he is not just an engineer, he is an arsonist. And his matches are molecular bonds, which he tears with the ruthlessness of a surgeon amputating gangrene. The Kursk steppe continues to burn, and this flame has an unnatural chemical hue, the hue of inevitability. July 12th. The sun stands at its zenith over Prokhorovka, heating the armor to a temperature where it is impossible to touch with a bare hand. The elite appears on the horizon. The 2nd SS Panzer Corps, divisions whose names are written with special attention in staff reports. They do not walk like ordinary Wehrmacht units. They walk like masters of war. New tigers with their 88mm guns capable of burning our tanks from 2 kilometers. Crews are veterans who went through France and Poland, aces with dozens of victories. They are confident in their technical superiority. They know that almost nothing penetrates their frontal armor. Igor Sobolev looks at this armada not through a sight, but through the prism of his calculations. This section of the field is his main exam. Here, in the lowland before the railway embankment, a zone of continuous destruction has been prepared. But not with mines. SS sappers clear mines quickly. Here, the very structure of the ground surface has been changed. At night, under the cover of rain noise, the last reserves of the mixture were poured here. 30 tons of modified reagent. Here, the concentration is brought to absurdity. The soil is turned into a greasy, slippery rink that won't dry for another 2 days, thanks to heavy paraffin additives. This is not just a trap. This is a stage on which German tanks will perform their last, deadly pirouette. The column enters the zone. The Germans hold a wedge formation. The distance is ideal. Attack speed, 20 kilometers per hour. They see Soviet anti-tank artillery positions ahead and prepare to crush them with tracks. The lead battalion commander gives the order, "Full throttle! Close in for a guaranteed shot!" At this moment, geometry enters the equation. Sobolev ordered the section to be flooded unevenly. The left side of the strip slides more than the right. As soon as the heavy machines fly onto this zebra crossing, a turning moment of colossal force arises. The right track still clings to dry ground. The left is already flying on oil. The laws of mechanics are inexorable. The tanks begin to rotate to the left. Not 5 degrees, not 10. They spin 90 degrees. The entire attacking line, as if on command from an invisible conductor, suddenly turns sideways to the Soviet positions. The frontal armor of a Tiger is 100 millimeters of alloy steel, an impenetrable shield. Side armor is 80 millimeters, and it is vertical, without rational angles of inclination. The lower part of the hull, behind the road wheels, is even thinner. This is the beast's vulnerable underbelly. And now, thanks to chemistry, the beast has exposed it to the blow itself. "Got him!" The scream of the Soviet battery commander breaks into a falsetto. "They're broadside! Armor-piercing! Aim low!" This is no longer a duel. This is an execution. Soviet ZIS-3 guns, which could only scratch a Tiger head-on, now have ideal targets in front of them. Range, 400 meters. It is impossible to miss. Shells bite into German sides, stitching them through. The kinetic energy of the impact is such that turrets are torn off their rings. Ammo racks detonate instantly. Heavy machines shudder and freeze, enveloped in black, greasy smoke. Those following try to brake, but the rink effect works against them. Tanks crash into each other, piling up. A heap of dozens of machines forms, unable to shoot or maneuver. Something unimaginable is happening on the radio of the elite SS Corps. Arrogance has vanished. German order has vanished. Only screams and curses are heard. "We cannot steer!" the Tiger Company commander screams. "The machine does not obey the helm! We are spinning! Where is this oil coming from? It's a swamp here!" The psychological break happens instantly. The elite, accustomed to dictating the terms of battle, found themselves helpless. A tanker can be brave when he feels the power of his machine. But when a 700 horsepower monster turns into an uncontrollable box sliding toward death, bravery is replaced by animal terror. They see their comrades being shot like in a gallery. They stomp on the gas, trying to escape, but the tracks only polish the soil, burying the tank deeper in chemical mud. "Look, Petro!" yells the gunner of the second gun, driving another shell into the breach. His face is black with soot, but his teeth flash in an angry grin. "They're like on parade, exposing their sides themselves. Well, thanks to science, they did us a favor." "Stop yapping," the gun commander cuts him off. "Fire! Before they come to their senses, hit the engine!" A shell strikes the engine compartment of a Panther that is helplessly spinning its tracks, trying to get out of the ditch. A flash. Fuel explosion. The crew doesn't even try to get out. Fire engulfs the machine in a second. Igor Sobolev stands at the observation post, clutching the parapet with whitened fingers. He feels no joy. He feels the earth trembling from the detonation of German ammunition. He sees confirmation of his theory. Intellect defeated brute force. A thin film of chemical reagent proved stronger than Krupp armor. 30 machines are already burning on the battlefield. Black pillars of smoke rise into the sky, blocking the sun. The smell of burning mixes with the smell of the very mixture that made this victory possible. This is not just the smell of war. It is the smell of the enemy's humiliation. Great Germany, building plans for world domination, is now spinning its wheels in the mud near Prokhorovka, unable to drive 10 meters. German crews begin to abandon intact but immobilized machines. They run, falling and sliding in the sludge, abandoning equipment worth millions of Reichsmarks. The fear of being burned alive in an iron box is stronger than duty. Soviet machine gunners meet them with squall fire. Sobolev looks at his watch. 3 in the afternoon. The attack that was supposed to break the front and decide the outcome of the war in the east choked, not in blood, but in oil. The chemical trap slammed shut. He turns to the staff officers. They look at him no longer as an engineer, but as a man who knows the secret code to victory. "Calculation finished," he says quietly. "Physics worked 100%. You can write the report." But he knows this is not the end. War is a pendulum, and soon it will swing the other way. There, beyond the Dnieper, there will be new tasks where friction will not need to be removed, but found, where speed will become more important than armor. But here, on this cursed field, the question is closed. The Wehrmacht's tank wedges were dulled against a Soviet chemist's formula. September 1943.
The war has turned 180 degrees.
Now it is not a viscous, bloody retreat and not a static defense. It is a race. The Red Army rolls west like a steel wave, breaking German barriers one after another. Dust raised by thousands of tracks does not have time to settle. Ahead is the Dnieper, a great river, a natural fortress behind which the Wehrmacht hopes to get a breather. Intelligence reports Germans are retreating across the river. Bridges are blown up on schedule. This is scorched earth tactics. But in the Kremenchug area there is a chance. One bridge, rail and road, a strategic artery. Aerial reconnaissance confirms the bridge is mined but still intact. The Germans are holding it to the last to transport their rearguards. As soon as the last German truck touches the right bank, the detonator will trigger. In the field headquarters, set up right in the body of a captured bus, there is an atmosphere of electric tension. The general looks at his watch.
The second hand chops time into segments, each of which could be fatal.
"Sappers intercepted radio traffic." The intelligence chief's voice is muffled by dust. "They have orders. Detonation in 40 minutes. Covering group is withdrawing." The general shifts his gaze to the map. 25 kilometers to the bridge in a straight line, along a stepped dirt road pockmarked with craters.
"Where is the advanced detachment?" he asks.
"Captain Lavrov's tank company is on the march, but they won't make it, Comrade General. The rated speed of a T-34 on the highway is 54 kilometers per hour. On dirt, God willing, 30. They need at least 50 minutes, and we don't have them. The bridge will go up right under their noses. We will be stopped by water, and we'll have to put infantry on rafts under machine gun fire." In the corner, piled with maps and empty shell casings, sits Igor Sobolev. He no longer looks like a civilian misplaced at the front.
His tunic has faded to whiteness. His face has coarsened. His hands are soaked in indelible technical grime. He listens to the briefing like conditions of a physics problem.
"We don't need equipment," the general turns to the chemist. "We need aviation. But a plane won't capture the bridge. Sobolev, you stopped tanks with friction. Now I need the reverse. I need them to fly. I need speed that isn't in the technical manual." Sobolev stands up. He walks to the table, picks up a pencil. "The problem isn't engine power," he says quickly, without preamble. "The problem is internal resistance. The V2 diesel has a governor, plus oil viscosity. To protect the engine from wear, we pour thick oil. It creates a film, but it also drags the pistons. At high RPM, the resistance of the viscous medium eats up to 15% of the power, plus friction in the transmission." "Cut to the chase, engineer," the general drums his fingers on the table.
"Can you make them go faster?"
"I can make them drive beyond the physical limits of the metal, but it's a ticket on a one-way trip." Sobolev takes a notebook with calculations out of his map case. "We will drain the standard oil, pour in a special compound. The base is light cracking fractions with added surfactants and He pauses. Molybdenum disulfide in critical concentration. This will reduce sliding friction inside the cylinders to almost zero. The pistons will fly like in a vacuum, but heat dissipation will degrade catastrophically. "What about the engines?" asks the commander of the repair battalion, a gloomy major with hands like claws. "They will melt," Sobolev answers calmly. After 30, maximum 40 minutes of operation at full throttle, thermal seizure will occur. Pistons will weld to liners. Connecting rods will snap. The engine will turn into a monolithic piece of metal. Tanks will not be repairable.
But for those 30 minutes, they will deliver power they are not designed for. We will remove the fuel pump governors.
The major turns purple. For him, a techie, murdering a working motor is a crime. "You're crazy, chemist," he growls. "You propose ruining a company of new machines for 20 kilometers? The transmission has a limit of strength. Gear teeth will be sheared to hell. Final drives will crumble." "And what is better, Major?" Sobolev looks him in the eye with a cold, unblinking stare. "Scrapping 10 engines, or losing 10,000 men crossing the Dnieper. The bridge is worth a division. We can make new iron. We cannot make new people." Silence hangs in the headquarters. Everyone understands the price. This is the cynical arithmetic of war. Technical resources are exchanged for tactical advantage. "Do it," the general decides instantly. "I give you Lavrov's company. Do what you want with the machines, but have them on the bridge in half an hour."
"On your responsibility."
Sobolev runs to the vehicle parks. Tankers have just shut off engines. The machines are shrouded in heat. "Drain the oil! Urgent!" Sobolev shouts, unscrewing the cap on a barrel of reagent his assistants rolled up while on the move. The liquid inside is a strange bluish color, fluid as water. It smells not of oil, but of sharp chemicals, alcohol, and ether. "Comrade military engineer, this is water!" The driver mechanic of the lead tank looks at the stream of liquid with horror. "Pressure will drop! We'll spin the bearing in the kilometer!" "You won't spin it if you keep RPM above 2,000. Sobolev climbs onto the armor himself, helping to pour the compound into the filler neck. "Listen to me carefully. We removed the seals from the governor. The gas pedal now has no stop. Floor it. The tachometer needle will go into the red zone. Don't look at it. Look at the road." "The engine is screaming like a stuck pig." "Let it scream. Your task is to wring the soul out of it. But fly to the bridge. You have no brakes, understand? If you lift off the gas, the oil wedge will disappear, and you will seize up instantly. Only full speed ahead. This is a flight, Sergeant. Low flight over the ground." Bustle surrounds the tanks. Mechanics, cursing, Tier Factory seals off high-pressure fuel pumps. They unscrew screws limiting fuel supply. Now the diesel will receive as much diesel as it can burn, and even more. This is violence against the mechanism. This is engineering barbarism. Sobolev moves from machine to machine. He checks the level of the hellish mixture. He knows what is happening inside the motor at the molecular level. Molecules of the additive create a layer on the metal, along which parts slide with unnatural ease. The friction that held back power is gone. But with it, protection against overheating is gone too. Thermal balance is broken. Every second of operation is a step toward the inevitable destruction of the metal's crystal lattice. "Mount up!" The company commander's order sounds like a gunshot. Hatches slam shut. 10 T-34s start simultaneously. The sound of motors has changed. It is no longer the low, confident rumble of a diesel. It is a high, hysterical screech turning into a howl. Idle RPM is already above normal. Not black smoke, but a blue, almost transparent flame bursts from the exhaust pipes. The mixture burns clean. Too hot. Sobolev jumps onto the armor of the commander's tank, clinging to the infantry handles. He must see this himself. He must control the decay of matter. "Forward!" yells Lavrov. The tank tears off, not like a combat vehicle, but like a racing car. Tracks tear out chunks of turf, throwing them 10 meters back. Acceleration presses into the armor. Sobolev feels the hull vibrating. It is the tremor of overstressed metal, ready to snap. Speedometer?
Its scale was no longer enough. The tanks exit onto the dirt road and begin an acceleration that seems impossible for a 30-ton behemoth. 50, 60, 70 kilometers per hour. The landscape on the sides merges into a blurred strip. Dust doesn't have time to rise behind the stern. It stands as a wall only after the tank has flown past. This is the Dnieper gambit. We sacrifice pieces, engines, transmissions, suspension, to checkmate the king. Time is compressed to the limit. 20 minutes remain, and speed is the only argument in the dispute with the detonator. The speedometer needle trembles at the 60 kilometers per hour mark, then crosses it and hits the limiter. For a 30-ton machine, this isn't speed. It's entering low Earth orbit. The T-34 tank is not designed for racing. Its Christie suspension is calculated for a smooth ride over plowed fields, not for flying over bumps. But now, the laws of operation are cancelled. Inside the fighting compartment, it is hell. Vibration is such that teeth chatter, threatening to crumble. The metal of the hull resonates from the scream of the engine, working at exorbitant RPM. This is not the low rumble of a diesel that tankers are used to. It is the hysterical, high howl of a turbine ready to go haywire. Igor Sobolev, clinging to the infantry rail on the armor, feels the hot wind stripping the skin from his face. He doesn't look at the road. He listens to the motor. The heat balance equation plays in his head. The special compound in the crankcase did the impossible. It reduced sliding friction between piston and cylinder to almost zero. The molybdenum additive created a slippery film that holds at 300 degrees. Mechanical resistance disappeared. The crankshaft spins at a furious speed, 3,000 RPM instead of the standard 1,800. But physics cannot be fooled completely. The energy of fuel combustion hasn't gone anywhere.
The cooling system can't cope.
Radiators are boiling. Water in them turns to steam, which whistles out of the valves. Engines operate in adiabatic overheating mode. They are melting from the inside. "Oil temperature 120!" screams the driver mechanic through the headset. His voice breaks with strain. Hands gripping the levers are numb and wooden. Driving a tank at such speed is weightlifter's work. "Pressure dropping! Hold the RPM!" shouts back Commander Lavrov, who is being thrown around the turret like a doll. He smashed his eyebrow on the gun breech. Blood floods his eye, but he doesn't wipe it. "Don't lift! If you lift, we'll seize!" Tanks fly across the steppe, leaving a dust trail a kilometer long. The hydroplaning effect, familiar to aviators, now works for tankers. At such speed, tracks don't have time to press into the ground. The tank essentially glides over the surface of the earth, merely touching the tops of bumps. Ground pressure drops dynamically. The machine becomes a projectile. Suddenly, the T-34 going on the left stumbles. A sheaf of fire, looking like a lightning strike, bursts from its engine compartment. A connecting rod snapped. The liberated part, accelerated to insane speed, punches through the cylinder block, stitches through the side armor from the inside, and flies out. The tank noses down. The track jams. The machine spins and begins to tumble. 30 tons of steel do a somersault, scattering road wheels and pieces of armor. There is no explosion. The crew died instantly from the G-force of the impact. "Don't look!"
screams Sobolev, seeing the lead tank's mechanic flinch. "Look forward! The bridge!" Ahead, in the haze of hot air, the trusses of the railway bridge over the Dnieper emerge. It looks like a toy. Still 5 kilometers to go. The timer in the chemist's head counts down seconds. Germans on the other bank already see the dust cloud.
They don't understand what it is.
Tanks cannot move this fast. They think it's aviation coming in at treetop level. Vibration intensifies. The special compound begins to lose its properties. Long polymer chains break down from the temperature. Friction returns. A growing metallic screech is heard, piston rings starting to tear the cylinder walls. The engine is devouring itself. Metal welds onto metal. 2 more minutes, whispers Sobolev. Hold on for 2 more minutes, you damn pieces of iron. Inside the tanks, men lose consciousness from G-forces and heat. The temperature in the fighting compartment is 60 degrees Celsius. The air is saturated with fumes of red-hot oil and exhaust gases breaking through burnt gaskets. The loader vomits right onto the ammo rack. The radio operator hangs in his straps, unconscious. Only the drivers, turned into biomechanical appendages of the levers, continue to floor the gas. The instinct of self-preservation is disabled. Only the order works. The tanks fly onto the embankment before the bridge. Speed, 80 kilometers per hour. They aren't driving. They are jumping from crest to crest. The German bridge guard is in panic. They see steel boxes flying at them, engulfed in blue exhaust flame. It looks like an attack of demons, not the Red Army. Machine gun bursts bounce off the sloped armor like peas. "Brakes!" commands Lavrov. "No brakes!" screams the mechanic. "Bands burned out!" "Brake with the hull! Hit the barrier!" The lead tank, without slowing down, flies onto the bridge deck. The mechanic yanks the right lever toward himself. The track locks dead, unable to withstand the load, and snaps. Links fly like shrapnel, cutting down German sappers running to the detonator. The tank skids, sliding sideways along the wooden decking, striking sheaves of sparks, and crashes into a barricade of sandbags. The impact is terrible. Sobolev is thrown from the armor. He rolls across the planks, scraping skin, but immediately jumps up. The other machines burst in behind. They hit each other, ram the bridge trusses, turning into a pile of immobile metal. Engines die one after another with a terrible k-k sound, as if dying of a heart rupture. Heat seizure. Pistons have welded to blocks into a single hole. Silence falls instantly. Only the crackling of cooling metal and the hiss of steam are heard. Sobolev, staggering, runs to the center of the span. There, by the supports, hang crates of TNT. Wires stretch to the other bank. He sees a German officer feverishly cranking the handle of a blasting machine on the far end of the bridge. But there is no explosion. The chemist falls to his knees in front of the bundle of wires. They are severed. Severed by a flying piece of track or a shard of armor upon impact. Coincidence? No. Statistical probability multiplied by speed. Lavrov climbs out of the hatch of the lead tank. He is covered in oil, his face a solid bruise. He looks at the smoking engine of his machine. The engine compartment cover is glowing red. The paint on the armor has blistered. "Dead," wheezes the tanker, patting the armor with his palm. "Heart burned out. But she got us here." Sobolev looks at the speedometer of the dead tank through the open hatch. The needle is frozen at the 90 mark. It fused to the dial. This is a monument to the impossible. Russian engineering thought, multiplied by Russian fury, hacked physics once again. The bridge is ours. The path to the west is open. But the price of this dash is a graveyard of the country's best engines now lying on the planks of the Dnieper crossing. On the bridge over the Dnieper, there is silence. It seems unnatural, dense, like cotton wool stuffing ears after a concussion. A minute ago, metal roared here, torn by overloads, and superheated steam whistled. Now only the splashing of water is heard below, 30 meters under the deck, and dry clicks of cooling armor. 10 T-34 tanks froze in chaotic poses. Some nosed into the railing, some blocked the way, standing crosswise. They are dead. Their engines will never start again. Igor Sobolev walks along the column. His footsteps echo hollowly on the wooden decking. He doesn't look at the faces of the tankers, who, staggering, climb out of hatches, greedily gulping river air. He looks at the machines. For him, these are not just tanks. These are laboratory specimens that passed a crash test beyond the limits of acceptable operating conditions. He approaches Captain Lavrov's lead machine. The engine transmission compartment cover is open. From there, like from the mouth of a volcano, rises blue, acrid smoke. It smells of burnt varnish, scale, and that specific smell of special mixture, which will now be forever etched in memory.
Sobolev takes a piece of rag from his pocket, wraps his hand, and touches the cylinder block. The heat is felt even through the fabric.
Clinical death,
states the driver mechanic, who walked up from behind. His hands are shaking with fine tremors. He can't light a cigarette.
I heard it dying, comrade engineer. First a ringing started, high-pitched, like a string snapped. And then a bang. And that was it. Stopped dead.
That wasn't a bang. That was diffusion welding, Sobolev corrects dryly. At temperatures above 400 degrees and the absence of an oil film, the piston and cylinder liner exchanged molecules. They became one whole. Now, it's a monolith. The scientist looks inside. He sees what he expected. The cylinder heads are warped, gaskets burned out completely, turning to ash. The special compound that removed friction fulfilled its task and evaporated, leaving the metal defenseless against its own energy. It was a deal with the devil of thermodynamics. 30 minutes of absolute power in exchange for the life of the mechanism.
Ahead, at the entrance to the bridge, sappers are working. They act quickly, professionally, without unnecessary words. The commander of the demining group raises a hand, clutching a bunch of cut wires. "Clear!" he shouts. "Charges disarmed! Detonators removed!" The Germans didn't make it. The reaction speed of a human pressing a button turned out to be lower than the speed of a tank flying at the limit of physics. Those very seconds won by chemical boost became decisive. If the tanks had gone at standard speed, the bridge would already be lying at the bottom of the Dnieper. Sobolev walks to the edge of the bridge and looks at the river. The great water barrier, which was supposed to stop the front's advance for weeks, was taken on the fly. Without days of artillery preparation, without thousands of corpses at crossings, it was taken by mind.
Taken by the audacity of an engineering solution that staff theorists in Berlin could not even imagine. Main forces begin to pull up to the bridge. Infantry runs past, looking with respect and fear at the smoking, motionless tanks. Soldiers slap the warm armor with their palms, thanking the iron. Tractors with a straining roar begin to pull apart the dead machines, clearing the passage. T-34s with jammed tracks are dragged sideways with a terrible screech. They are dumped onto the shoulder like spent shell casings. They have done their job. The general approaches Sobolev. He looks aged by 10 years in this half-hour, but in his eyes is triumph. "You burned the company of tanks for me, Sobolev," he says, looking at the pile of equipment. 10 new machines. For that, in 41, they would have shot you. I bought you time, Comrade General, replies the chemist, wiping hands black with soot. The exchange rate is favorable. 1 burnt engine for 2.5 kilometers of breakthrough. The bridge is intact. Tomorrow the whole army will be here. It will be, nods the general. Write up commendations for your chemists. And this formula, write it down. Maybe it will be useful again. It won't, Sobolev shakes his head. This is a one-time solution. Germans learn fast. Next time they will mine the approaches so that no speed will save us. We'll have to come up with something new. He looks at the horizon where the sun is setting. The Battle of Kursk, the Battle of the Dnieper. These are not just the strategies of Zhukov and Rokossovsky. This is a war of laboratories. This is a competition between Krupp steel and Soviet chemistry, between German pedantry and Russian ingenuity. The enemy bet on armor thickness and gun caliber. We bet on knowledge of the properties of matter. The German Panthers and Tigers left in the steppes near Prokhorovka were the height of technical perfection.
Masterpieces of mechanics. But they lost to a bucket of dirty sludge brewed in a shed under shelling. Because war is not just resources, it is the ability to apply them unconventionally. Sobolev picks up a fragment of a track from the decking. The metal is heavy, with jagged edges still warm. This is physical evidence, evidence that intellect is the most terrible weapon. A tank can be knocked out, infantry can be pinned to the ground by fire, but a thought that finds a way out of a dead end cannot be destroyed. The first trucks with shells drive onto the bridge. The logistical artery has begun to beat, pumping the blood of war to the western bank. The operation is complete. Chemist Igor Sobolev turns his back to the west and walks to his willies. He has no feeling of euphoria. There is only terrible fatigue and emptiness inside, like in a burned-out engine cylinder. Tomorrow will be a new day, a new task, a new problem that will seem unsolvable, and he will again have to find a solution, mixing risk, science, and dirt in one test tube. But he proved the main thing. Russian engineering thought does not just copy or catch up. It is capable of creating asymmetrical responses that break the spine of the most perfect military machine in the world. And as long as there are people in headquarters willing to listen to crazy scientists, and people in tanks willing to floor the gas until the brakes fail, this army cannot be stopped. Sobolev's formula is not a chemical composition. It is an algorithm for victory. Find the weak point in the enemy's strength and hit it with everything at hand, be it oil, phosphorus, or one's own life. The car moves off. Behind Sobolev remains the Dnieper, the bridge, and 10 iron heroes who burned from the inside so that others could live. History will remember the generals. Science will remember the result. And he will remember the smell of overheated metal and the silence that comes after the impossible has been done.